warm welcome from our side as well. Thank you very much for coming to this session on problem solving. Before we start, we would like to give you a little introduction to regarding us to you. And if you don't mind, I give it a go, I start. So my name is Hendrik Ascheberg. I'm from Germany, so the next few minutes you have to deal with a bad German accent, but you won't have another choice, so sorry for that. I'm running a consultancy business which is called Vanguard Germany or Vanguard Deutschland. And actually what we do is we help managers to improve their organization. So that leads into better staff morale, lower cost, or better revenue, stuff like that. And before that, I was working for a car manufacturer in south of Germany. I did finance, got a little bit bored by the numbers, did project management. I became a lean consultant. Why I'm telling you that is, at that time, I thought I'm a really good problem solver. And today's session, as you see, is about problem solving. So I thought I'd just share a little story with you guys, because that was quite important for my future life now, why I ended up here. At that time, in that car manufacturing environment, I was working in R&D, so in development. And the purpose of that system is, you build up an engine, and you test it, you run tests, and that's it pretty much, you know. And there were issues with availability of parts or software, so software wasn't ready. And, you know, I said, smart guy I am, you know, good problem solver, fantastic, let's do something about it. And what we did at that time, quite typically, we thought there are some tensions in the flow, you know, between people. And we got a bunch of managers in a room, we got a chief engineer in the room, you know, we did a big kickoff, you know, we're doing something different now. And what happened, we put them in the room, we did a brainstorming. The first thing, I wish I've never done that, but I did it. And what they came up with were, we need more capacity, yeah? We need more capacity, we need 2 more functions. We need to kind of a project manager, you know, someone who's hunting software, who kicks the supplier, you know, get the software here, something like that. And we got that. And of course, communication got a little bit more difficult. We had more people. So we had another idea to solve that problem. We got all the people on a Friday afternoon in the room where we were talking about what's going on, you know, something like a core team meeting or things like that. And we did that, thank God, everyone coming. We created another problem because suddenly this one guy was talking about these missing parts, another guy was talking about missing parts. They had an Excel sheet, they had a different Excel spreadsheet, some had an IT solution, you know, and they were talking about different stuff. You might know that. So for us, it was really, really obvious we need to have an IT solution to solve this problem, because we need to understand, you know, we need to all talk about the same missing parts and the same software which is missing. And that was the point when I met first Vanguard, you know, I met the Vanguard guys, and I had to say I didn't like them. You know, they were a bit dodgy, they were weird, you know, they were a bit like, I don't know how to say that, but their thinking was different, their brain wasn't working properly, I thought, because they're asking me 2 questions. And the first one was, so Hendrik, what problem do you try to solve? And I'm like, yeah, bloody obvious, you know, we need to have IT, I need to have budget, you know, we need to create an IT solution in order to make a missing parts list, you know, that we have all the same understanding, da-di-da-di-da-di-da, yeah. And then the next question was, so what is your biggest problem? And that was late in the evening, and he left, you know, they left, and I'm like, I had a bad night, because I'm thinking, why are you asking me this question, you know? And then I'm thinking about it, and actually I said, hang on a minute. If I truly understand the problem of missing parts, why we have missing parts in the system, and I can solve it, I don't need to care about functions who are hunting parts. I probably don't need an IT solution to show we have missing parts because we don't have missing parts. Do you know what I mean? So I felt like, hang on, this is quite interesting, this is a bit different. And actually it made me change my thinking. And I got one of these Vanguard guys from UK over today, Steve Maddocks. And if you would just quickly introduce yourself.
Well, good morning. I'll add my introduction very briefly. As Hendrik says, I'm also from Vanguard. I've been working with Vanguard for about 10 years. I'm one of the nutters that he refers to, that turns up in the client and asks very awkward questions. And the reason for those awkward questions is based on the premise of Vanguard. It was created 30 years ago by a bunch of psychologists, trying to understand why you take human beings who are natural problem solvers, innovative by their very nature, very, very generally intelligent, very good at nurturing other human beings, very good at operating complex machinery, very good at doing some very, very interesting things, and you put them into an organizational environment and they behave like consummate morons. And you say, why is that? Why is it that when we put people into something called an organization, they suddenly stop being these imaginative, innovative, fascinating human beings? And a very quick example, a long time ago, Vanguard tried taking people out of these organizations and putting them into situations where they would learn how to work as a team and solve problems and be innovative, etc. And then we put them back into the organization they came from, and they behaved like consummate morons again. And so we started to say, okay, so what's going on here? What's happening? And it's what changed our focus from looking at the human being as a human being and looking at the human being as a human being in context. And it's that context that we started studying and analyzing. And from there, we created the method that we use to analyze an organization, understand what's happening, and then experiment to do things differently. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about that later on.
Thank you very much. Good. So, that's us, that's you, so you still can leave the room. I hope you won't, or we have to lock the room. So I think let's start. So the topic for today is, as I said, problem solving. And for me, there are 4 main points we want to look at today. The first one is actually, if you solve the wrong problem, you end up with bad performance. Yeah, and I will tell a little story around that. The second one is thinking governs performance, and that is kind of a little bit theory, and you guys will help me to build that theory around this little story. The third bit is we will have a look at the theory in action. So we have a financial service case study I was working with, and we have a little look, if you have this theory, how that does it work in action, and how can you improve performance. And then Steve will talk about a framework to take action. So you have the theory, you have seen it in a system, and you might ask yourself, so what can I do? Yeah? How can I take action? And last but not least, we should have time for questions and discussion. Does that sound all right? Yeah? Thank God. So my first story, it's a personal experience, my own experience. The title of the story, you could just call it airline story, or in customer terms, you could say how a Dutch airline pissed me off and they thought they're doing a fantastic job, yeah? But we probably just keep it with airline story. So what happened, I'm flying quite a lot from London to Germany, to Düsseldorf, because I'm working with these guys as well in London. So last year, Christmas, I was flying from London to Düsseldorf and I couldn't get a direct flight, short before Christmas. So what happened, I took a transfer via Amsterdam. And unfortunately, down to weather condition, I was stuck at the airport. Yeah? And no problem, smart guy, problem solver. I go to the transfer desk, 5 people waiting in the queue. I say, thank God, great, you queue. Suddenly you hear a nice lady talking through a mic. Next, please, number 20, to counter 4. You think, oh, okay, damn, you need to pull the number, So you pull the number, see you're number 80, so your first performance goes down, you're like, oh God, 60 people in front of the queue. Okay, cool. So I asked a nice lady, I had luck, I could ask a nice, polite lady, she was really willing to help me. I explained to her my situation, and I said, look, I need to go to Germany. And she said, no problem, tomorrow morning we fly you to Germany. Like, yeah, that's cool, but at 8 o'clock I need to be in Germany. I have a business meeting. Oh, yeah. So no train, no flight tonight. It was 9 o'clock. So what do I do? Yeah, again, problem solver. I'm like, just give me a rental car. I just drive. It's light. Düsseldorf is not too far. And she's like, no, can't do that. And okay, so why can't you do that? It's too expensive. But you get a free flight tomorrow in the morning, you get a 4-star hotel from us tonight, we bring you to the hotel, we pick you up in the morning from the hotel, you get a 3-course dinner tonight, you get a £20 voucher at the airport, yeah, to buy drinks and all that stuff, you get free phone calls all over the world, so you could probably call President Obama, but no point because he knows already what you want to talk to him. And the last but not least, you get a 50 quid voucher for the next flight with us. How cool is that? Yeah. And then, at the same time, her face became red, my face became red. I think she probably felt like, hang on, we're giving this customer all this, and I'm telling him the car is too expensive. Okay, yeah, and I just got angry, you know. I got a red face because I got angry, I got furious, I couldn't make my meeting, yeah. And that is a little story, as one story, one customer experience that shows you if you solve the wrong problem, in this case for the customer, you end up with bad performance. Yeah? And now I would like to ask you to help me a little bit around performance. So my first question to you guys is, in this case, how is the performance? And the performance could be cost, moral, happiness, from customer, airline, whatever. So do you have any ideas? How is the performance? Any voluntaries, or do I need to pick someone?
Well, the happiness factor is quite down for the customer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was furious. I was angry, definitely. From a staff point of view, what do you think?
She felt helpless, like I should be able to help this guy.
Yeah. Trained to help me, but actually she can't. Exactly. From the airline perspective, what do you think? From the airline perspective? Sorry? Perfect job. So what about regarding cost? Yeah? What do you think? Less, more? We don't really know, but probably, just giving me a car would be cheaper than, doing all this stuff. I think there's another important thing, reputation. Just last week, there was in the German newspaper, there was an article about airlines, Ryanair, and they said, actually they realized, if you fly with Ryanair, you have to print off your boarding pass, and otherwise if you miss it, you forget to take it, you have to pay 60 quid or something, So Ryanair now realizes, actually, customer don't like that, Actually, there were a lot of customers who don't like that. So if you do these things, reputation starts going down, yeah? So if you have a good experience, people might tell about it, yeah? If you have a bad one, they will definitely tell about it, yeah? And me now, I'm sitting here in front of 50, 100 people, yeah? I'm not just talking to friends, so there is a reputation damage, yeah? So, let's have a look. The performance, you said that, we discovered that, so it's not perfect, yeah? It's not good. What do you think, my next question, what do you think, why do we have this performance? So what is it that the lady can't help me? Process defined, yeah. Anything else?
Fundamentally, it comes down to the airline not trusting customer service agents to represent their best interest.
Very good, very good. Yes, yeah. The customer doesn't trust the customer, the airline doesn't trust the customer, exactly. So you heard something of standard procedures, service level policies, yeah, something like that. And you also might have something like regulations or audit, yeah, so we can't trust our staff. If they do it differently, we send them to audit, we send an audit, yeah. And what do you think, why do we have that? Why do we have this standards? Why do we do that? Makes life easy. I like that. Very good. Anything else? No trust in whom? Yeah, in all human beings. So, who would be the best person to make the decision what's right for the customer or what's the best for all? Who is the? Exactly, the frontline stuff. Yeah, but who implements the standard? Management, exactly, yeah. So you see things like, we don't trust stuff, yeah. Managers know best, this stuff. Some think, if we wouldn't have a standard, the customer would rip us off, yeah, things like that. And it's all calculable, yeah, so standards are calculable, things like that, yeah. And this is just a little story that shows you the theory behind this. We believe this is a kind of theory you can use. It's not written in stone, but we say thinking governs performance. So if you think standards are cool, you think about standards are cool, you probably put that in your system. I don't mean IT system, I mean the organization, yeah? And that has a certain impact on performance, yeah, if that makes sense. So that's why how you think about management and design, that will have an influence on the performance, yeah? So this is a little bit of theory, and we keep that in mind, and we reflect on that with the next financial service case study. But before, should come something up. You might now say, look, this is just Hendrik, he had a bad experience, the standard works. Fair enough. The thing is, you could guess that, but the point is you need to know that. So what we say is you need to analyze and understand it. Performance, how is your performance, how is your system, and how is your system, your thinking. And if you did that, you can take action, yeah? You can act on your system, and that leads to a different performance. So we will have a look at a financial case study. And this is a customer I was working with, and it's like, the purpose of the system is, from a customer's point of view, help me get a finance, I need finance, something like that. And especially this system was about car finance, yeah? And value demands that are placed on that system are kind of, my contract is ending, I need advice, what can I do? I want to extend. Or I always reach my mileage, yeah? So things like, can I have a recalculation of my contract, yeah? Or just need advice, simple stuff like that. And we call that value demand. This demand you do because it's to serve the customer. And because you have different value demands, what happens in organizations, you functionalize it, yeah? So you have different functions. So the first one does maybe only end of contracts, the second one does the recalculation, yeah? And there, you created your first problem, because the question is, how do you get the demand from the customer to the function, if that makes sense, yeah, to the team? And you have two opportunities here. So the first is if they phone up, you have an IVR. So that is this thing, if you call your telecommunication provider, you probably end up in one of these. Please press 1 if you want to do X, Y, that. You know that? You like it? Funny, no one likes it. Still, everyone has it. It's weird, isn't it? And I think I know why you like it. What happens, of course, the bad customer, the impatient one, he doesn't listen to 1, 2, 3, 5, he's just pressing the 1. Yeah, I don't care about 1 to 5. Then the other one, I call them the stupid ones, the stupid customer. They listen to 1, 2, 3, 5, but they don't know, they have this career and they say, I don't know what to press. So they press the 1 as well, yeah? So what happens actually is, you have all the customer going to 1, and 1 has to say, I'm sorry, I'm the wrong person, I can't help you, yeah? So you have an exchange of transaction, if that makes sense, yeah? And there, you created another problem because your transactions are doubled, yeah? So customer phones, gets the answer, it's done, 1 transaction. In this case, customer phones, oh, I'm sorry, I need to pass you on to something, 2nd transaction. And then, the same as with the mailbox, you have a customer sending mails, yeah, to a mailbox, and then what you do is, you sit, one person is sitting there every day, 2 hours in the morning, and he's just, saying, this one is for, Emma, this one is for Hendrik, and so on and so on. So then, what happens, because everyone is phoning the 1, you lose customer. Because a lot of customers are phoning 1, they're in the queue, they can't get someone to answer. They probably put down the phone and they stop, yeah? So as a manager, you don't want that, because you say, actually, we need to have a service level. Yeah, it's a bit like the standard, a service level. And you need to have an abandon call rate, a lost call rate. 90% of the time you take the calls, and 10% it's all right, yeah? Something like that. And what happens with this one, you created actually another problem. Because when I was sitting in that system with a person, they were constantly, with a member of staff, they were constantly picking up the phone, they were like busy, busy, busy. And I was sitting next to them, and one said, I asked her, so what are you doing? You know, there was a customer, so what happened? And she's like, yeah, you know, I'm sending a mail now. I said, you're replying to the customer's query, you know? No, I'm sending a mail to myself. And I'm like, okay, interesting. So why do you send yourself a mail? Yeah, I will do this later because I need some time for that. If I do it now, I can't pick up the phones, you know? So what happens, she said, and I get a benefit at the end of the year. And if we don't hit this target of 10%, I don't get money, you know? So actually what she's doing is she's producing a lot of emails to herself or to other people. And of course what happens, she then takes an email later on and, you know, she wants to do it, and then she realizes, oh, I don't have all the information I thought. So she needs to go back. And actually, the first thing, you just tripled your transaction. And if she goes back to the customers, the customer doesn't probably necessarily pick up the phone, so you might go through the same thing again. Yeah, so even have more transaction. Yeah, and that kind of amplifies demand, and you create a backlog. Yeah, because you can't get the customer, you having piling up things. If that makes sense. Yeah, and then we have managers who have a fantastic idea. Because staff says, you know, I need time to work. I can't, you know, I constantly have to pick up the phones. I need time to work. So we create a back office. Yeah? And that means the people here, the front office, are talking to customers. And the back office, for example, doing recalculations, and they're doing it fast and all that stuff, you know. And what happens, you have another transaction, yeah? Because he has to put it on there. And same here, you know, you pick up things, information missing, yeah, or stuff like that. And another transaction. If you need to go back to it's an endless, you know, you hand over demand all the time. And this is what happened in this customer. And then you have the customer, in this organization, sorry. And then you have the customer. And, you know, this impatient customer, of course, what does he do? You know, there were demands waiting up. He's phoning and saying, where is my stuff, you know? And you get additional demand. And that is important because it's not value demand. It's something we call a failure because something went wrong for the customer. Or in this case, you didn't do the right thing for the customer, yeah? So what happens here, to summarize it, the system got a bit messy, if I can say that. So they had cool ideas that wanted to try to solve problems, but actually they didn't find the root cause. Yeah. And what else could you do? I mean, you could, for example, do improvement tools like 5S. You know, you clean desk or something like that. But that might not necessarily help. You could do outsourcing, but you wouldn't change this. What you need to do is you need to find the root cause. And if you take the theory, yeah? We want to have a look how that looks like. So the performance in this case was increase of transaction. You saw some examples. Overall, only 20% of the time, 20% the customer got an answer directly. So in 80% of the time, you passed it on. They had a backlog of 3 months. So that means if you mail the service, you would get an answer. If you don't phone up before, you get an answer in 3 months. You had failure, therefore, you had failure demand rates of 60%. So more than half of your capacity is actually dealing with stuff that shouldn't come in the first place. Yeah, if that makes sense. So it's a huge performance issue here. Let's see in the system, we had already the allocation of the work, the back office, and the service level. And now if you think about it, why do we do that? The one thing is allocation of work. You have to do that because it's functionalized. And back office, it's a functionalization in itself as well, yeah? So I ended up with 5 functions. And that is a bit like leave your brain mentality, yeah? So it's why do you do functionalization? You probably do it because you think you just do repetitive tasks faster, yeah? And the other thing is you have specialists so they can do stuff faster, if that makes sense. The service level there is kind of a target, yeah? And why do managers do targets? It's the same, you know, I see my staff at the coffee machine, you know, I see them having a cigarette and all that stuff, and you think, hang on, you should be on the phone, yeah, not having coffee, yeah. So you implement something to make them work harder, yeah, and you think you increase efficiency. But in this case, it didn't work out. So if we take, again, thinking system performance, on the left side, you see the old system. What they did this analysis. They tried to understand what's going wrong, and they were sitting with their staff and realized, actually, hang on, here's something going wrong, yeah? So what they did was, they realized we shouldn't just focus on activity, we should understand value and failure demand, and stop failure demand, and understand why it's happening. What they did as well, they realized if we have all this functionalization, we send each other emails and phone calls and all that stuff, we should rather better design our service against demand. So we bring expertise to the front, we upskill people to do more, yeah? And targets, they realized targets drove the wrong behavior. So what they said, let's do measures, but not targets. We need to measure to learn and improve, but not set an arbitrary target, yeah? And the other thing, what happened, managers were different, so they weren't sitting in a room, they tried to be in the work, and they were empowering, engaging people to problem solving, if that makes sense. So the system changed from 5 functions to 1 functions, yeah, because the thinking changed. They said, okay, we need to change something. 5 to 1 functions, 14 mailboxes before, now they did 1 mailbox, and the targets I said, no point in doing targets. Let's do something, let's measure to learn and improve. And what happened on performance, they got rid of the backlog, 3 months. The staff could even do more work. They did proactive work, they took over more work, and before they had the idea, oh, we probably need more staff, yeah? And staff was firefighting. And because they constantly had to pick up the phones, they were unhappy, and they were really, it was a mess. So here morale went up, and they said, yeah, cool, we're adding value to the client. To the customer. So that is the financial service. And now, you had this theory. This is one system, that has changed. And now the question might be, what can you do yourself, or how could you take action? And Steve will talk you through that.
Thank you very much. Cheers, man. So, that's one case study. What I'd like to do is just to very high level take you through the underlying theory to this. Oops, wrong one. Cool. So I'm not going to make it much detail. I want to talk to you at a level of principle. When we do the work that Hendrik has just talked about, we're deploying this 3-phase model. Now, how much of what you've seen so far seems like common sense? Everything's common sense, isn't it? And the problem is, when you walk into that environment and you see the things that are going on and you see the IVRs and the functionalization and the targets, at a level of gut, it feels wrong. You can see the consequences of it, of driving chaos. But remember my point from earlier on. These are smart people running these organizations. These are well-minded, well-intentioned individuals trying to do a good job. Don't fall into the trap of saying bad managers or bad leaders or whatever else. These are people trying to do a good job, and this thing that they have created is the best thing they can come up with to solve the problem that they're faced with day in, day out. And the reason for that is the assumptions and the thinking we have about the design and management of work, which is prevalent in our heads. Our heads, all of us. We're all human beings, we all have this thing going on. So what we do is we take people through this in order to get them to see what's currently happening, even though they work there every day. We take them through a process of analysis. We get them to challenge their current assumptions. Thinking system performance, as Hendrik said, we start with studying the mechanics, the detail, but what you're doing is putting them into a situation which causes them to challenge their current point of view. I don't challenge people's point of view. I put them into situations where their point of view is challenged. It's a very subtle difference. So anybody who's sitting there thinking that was an easy thing to fix, I could have come up with that new design, you are absolutely right. The only problem is you would be labeled a nutter and put into the corner and ignored because your point of view is so different from those that are running the organization. What you need to do is put people through an approach that challenges their point of view. So this is very simple. I won't spend long on it, but this early stage, you're studying to understand. Obviously, that gives you the opportunity to build a baseline, understand current performance, and understand where the organization is currently at. You then move into this second phase. It's also about learning. The plan phase, you run some experiments. I know we've got other speakers talking about running experiments. I'm going to be really interested to see what goes on there. We're building these things. We take real demand and we try operating to a different set of principles. We try creating principles. We try doing things differently and then learning from what we see in front of us and what happens. And I'm always quite flippant about the final stage. Everybody talks about how difficult roll-in is and how challenging and the rest of it. It's hard work, don't get me wrong. But if you've properly understood your assumptions, you've properly understood your current environment, you've properly understood how you help other people see and learn, and you've run some experiments, you know how to experiment, learn, and help other people experiment and learn, the last phase isn't easy, but you've learned everything you need to learn in terms of skills, techniques, etc. to make it happen. So that rolling in phase we talk about in that final phase shouldn't be, well, it will be hard work, but it shouldn't be new and different. It shouldn't be the phase that's challenging. The other two should be the difficult ones. So that's the simple model. Hard graft. We've been using this for many years, and it produces the kind of things that Hendrik took you through. It might be easier if actually at the end we just get some questions off you around it rather than me going into any particular detail based on my assumptions at the moment. Oops. So I think you want to finish up, mate?
Yeah.
And then we'll do some questions?
That's fine. So we want to leave you with that little statement just to review the presentation. So the first thing we were talking about, if you solve problems the wrong way, you end up with bad performance. Yeah. So we built some theory around that, and that is thinking, system, performance. And that means the way you think about the design of your system, you influence your performance, yeah? So that is quite an important point. And you have seen that in theory, in action, in a financial service. Every system is different in a way. They're quite similar ones, but mostly they're different. So it's not about just copying what you have seen, like 5 mailboxes to 1 mailbox. It's about really understanding what's wrong in your own system. Yeah. So therefore, you first need to analyze that. And the last bit we have looked at was how you can take action. And there you have the model for the check, plan, do model. And you first analyze, understand, then you learn and experiment in a safe environment, and then you can make an informed choice. Do you want to change the whole bit? Yeah, and you can kind of do the whole thing. If you're interested or curious about more, I mean, we're here the next 2 days. Just feel free to come to us, ask us. We have some webpage, the German one, Vanguard Deutschland, and vanguard-Methode, the English one. We have a few case studies and stuff like that on there.
The vanguard-Methode website has also got quite a lot of our intellectual property is now available on there. So there is quite a large resource, some of which is free to access, but it's very clearly marked the point at which you go beyond the free and you'll be able to access other things if you so choose. But we are very keen for people to access this technology, understand it, deploy it, but tell us how you get on, because that's the interesting bit.
Yeah, so we can learn and improve.